Welcome to the Matt Bernier Show.
Welcome in. Matt Bernier Show here on DRF TV on live.drf.com. We had a little bit of a technical issue that we had to hammer out before we could come on live, but here we are. We're good. Everything's all together. Getting ready on a big Pegasus World Cup weekend. My name is Matt Bernier. You can follow me on Twitter at Bernier_Matt. We've got a lot of good things coming here today. Hopefully, we have more technical issues, but hopefully we'll be able to talk to Peter Thomas Fornatale here in the next 2 or 3 minutes. We'll check in with him. He's out in Las Vegas for NHC 18 happening this weekend. It's actually getting ready to kick off if any of the players are playing their optional plays at Aqueduct or Gulfstream or Tampa or anywhere else. So big things going on this weekend out there in Vegas. But obviously, as far as the racing world is concerned, all eyes are going to be on Gulfstream Park tomorrow afternoon. The Grade 1, $12 million Pegasus World Cup Invitational. Let's take a look at that field if we could real quickly. It's a very interesting field. I understand it looks like a two-horse race on paper. And look, if either one of them runs their Breeders' Cup Classic, they're going to win. Plain and simple. I don't think I'm breaking any news there. But there's been an interesting wrinkle or two, whether it be breaking from the rail for Arrowgate, whether it be breaking from the far outside for California Chrome, going into the first turn at 1 1/8 miles at Gulfstream. Yeah, I mean, there are a couple of new interesting storylines, and if you think that compromises either one of them or lessens their chances, then maybe you want to shop around a little bit. You have quality in the field. I hate seeing all the people say it's two horses and a bunch of muck sacks. That's not true. That's not accurate. You have multiple Grade 1 winners in this field. And if this was the Santa Anita handicap, people would be looking at it saying, oh, it's a tremendous race. Take out Arrowgate, take out California Chrome. It's a phenomenal race. Well, guess what? You just happen to have the two best racehorses in the world as just crowned over at the Longines Awards in Europe. I mean, at the end of the day, this is what we wanted. We got the two big horses. They stayed in training for this race particularly. Maybe 1 1/8 miles not ideal. Maybe the post position's not ideal for either one of them. I don't think it's going to make a difference. I think they're both just head and shoulders above the rest of the field. It's going to be interesting to see ultimately if that does compromise either one of their chances. I don't think it will. We'll find out here in a little bit. We've got about, call it 30 hours till the Grade 1 Pegasus World Cup Invitational down at Gulfstream Park. We're going to take a break. Before we do, if you're watching on live.drf.com, thank you for doing so. If you're trying to check this thing out, podcast version, whether it's video or audio, we've got a bunch of different ways for you to find us. drf.com, video.drf.com, YouTube, SoundCloud, iTunes, all sorts of different ways for you to check this thing out. Twitter, Facebook Live, a million different ways if you want to find us out. So we're on every Friday, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. We're going to take a break. We're going to hopefully touch base with Peter Thomas Fornatale, dive into NHC 18 as well as the Pegasus World Cup down at Gulfstream Park tomorrow afternoon. The Matt Bernier Show. Stay with us.
California Chrome, straight and strong. Absolutely sensational. California Chrome. California Chrome. To California Chrome. Away to the Kentucky Derby. California Chrome wins impressively.
He's gone into overdrive. California Chrome wins the Dubai World Cup.
One of the greatest performances you'll ever see.
Chrome turns to gold.
Say goodbye to your inner caveman. If you're making caveman bets on pick sixes, you could be leaving money on the table. DRF Bets Ticket Maker helps you build more profitable exotic bets and place them with one click. Raise your game with DRF Bets Ticket Maker. Be a samurai with your ROI. DRF Bets Ticket Maker helps you cut out unprofitable exotic bets before they happen and be the master of profits. Raise your game with DRF Bets Ticket Maker, the exotic wagering app.
Well, the amazing thing about Outwork was just how similar he is to Uncle Mo. I mean, right away, of all of Rapoli's babies, he stood out as the most advanced, the most precocious, and the most talented, and that was exactly the same thing we'd seen a few years before with Uncle Mo.
Outwork wins it for John Velasquez.
To be able to win a Grade 1 like the Wood Memorial in only his 4th lifetime start was very impressive.
It is Outwork in front.
12:07 on the East Coast, 9:07 on the West Coast. The Matt Bernier Show on DRF TV on live.drf.com. If you're checking us out, thank you for doing so. We've got a bunch of different ways for you to find this thing out. YouTube, SoundCloud, DRF.com, iTunes, you name it, you can find us. Big weekend this weekend, not just because of the Pegasus World Cup, but we'll dive into that shortly. But the main event, if you're a horse player, it's the NHC. It's the 18th annual NHC. It's the National Handicapping Championship out in Las Vegas at the Treasure Island Hotel and Casino. And our guy, the DRF tournament editor, he is the wizard. I'd like to think of you as, let's say, the Adam Schefter of the tournament world. He's Peter Thomas Fornatal. He's the host of the DRF Players podcast. And we got the technical glitches, fingers crossed, out of the way. Pete, talk to me. How we doing out there?
Oh, it's great, man. I'm here in the ballroom. The vibes are terrific. This is the coolest horse player party of the year, and we are just about to get underway. We've got a purse of $2.5 million going to be chopped up amongst the 650 entries playing in this tournament. We've got 3 players playing for 7-figure bonuses on top of that. Great scenes here at Treasure Island for the National Handicapping Championship.
Now, for the people that are listening or watching to this, whether it's live or it's sort of later on in the day or even over the weekend, the overall atmosphere, I've been fortunate enough to play in it as well as cover it live as far as sort of news is concerned. For anyone that's unfamiliar with it, give the vibe, because it's different than any other sort of contest you've played in, whether it's the Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge or any of these other big, nice live money sort of events. Explain to the people the vibe today, right now, sort of the calm before the storm.
Absolutely. Well, the reason it's like that, Matt, in my opinion, is this is the one contest where you can't buy your way in. You have to win your way in. And as a result, everybody here already is a winner. You've already won something. You get this fun weekend in Vegas among your peers. It's not like as horse players, we have a lot of opportunities to have a convention in Las Vegas where it's just all horse players. So everybody here, there's 529 individuals, and they all share this love of racing. You could pick just throw a dart, pick a random person in the room and have a conversation with them about this shared passion and shared interest in racing and gambling. And I think that's a big part of the vibe and why so many players decide that this is an event they don't want to just play in once or twice. They want to come back every year, and they list it among their annual goals as horse players.
DRF tournament editor Peter Thomas Fornatal, also the host of the DRF Players podcast, joining me on the Matt Bernier Show. Pete, you alluded to the fact that the people that are there, they're already winners. They had to win an event to get into this event. This is sort of the only win in your in that we have as far as handicapping tournaments are concerned. For the folks that are unfamiliar with the format, dive into that a little bit, starting today with Friday, wrapping up on Sunday.
Absolutely. It's a 3-day marathon. I'm going to be covering it pretty extensively. If you want to follow me on Twitter, @LoomsBoldly, also Steve Bick at The Races Radio, going to have special coverage this afternoon, Friday, also Sunday afternoon. You can find that, stevebick.com. And here's how it works. The first 2 days, the players must make 18 plays across 8 tracks. Of those plays, 10 are mandatory, chosen by committee, that the players have to play. 8 are optional. At the end of the day on Saturday, the day 2, as you coined so cleverly a couple years back, Matt, moving day, the end of moving day, the field will winnow down to the top 10%. So in this case, that'll be, if it's a 650, that'll be the top 65 advance to championship Sunday. The final's back on a Sunday this year. At the start of the day on Sunday, there are another 10 optional plays, again, across 8 tracks. At some point, I think it's about 3:30 Eastern, there is a cutoff. And of those 65 who start the day, we end up with only 10. And those 10 move to the final table. They'll go up on the Treasure Island stage, where we've seen such great memories in the handicapping contest history over the last few years. They'll play 7 mandatory races. At the end of it, someone will have won at least $800,000. This year, I believe the top 4 are all slotted to get at least a 6-figure score. That final table, we've seen some real drama at it in years past. We've never had quite we haven't had a reversal yet in the last race. Maybe this will be the year we see some real crazy drama at the final table here at the NHC. It's going to be a lot of fun. A new champion, handicapping champion, will be crowned Sunday night at Treasure Island.
It'll be interesting to see, like you made mention, this is one of the biggest events. I would say probably one of the 2 or 3 events that horse players circle on the calendar. Give me, if you can, I understand it's a very competitive field, give me just a couple names that people should be aware of, not just because of what they've done, but how they're coming into this event. Do they truly sort of separate themselves as contenders from pretenders?
Oh gosh, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people drawing live in this event. That is for absolute sure. But a few names that come to mind. One guy who's going to be inducted into the NHC Hall of Fame on Sunday night. He is one of the most respected tournament players of all time. I'm talking about Paul Sherman. I've had the opportunity to interview him many, many times for the Winning Contest Player on air on the DRF Players podcast. Sherman's always a player to watch. He's finished in the top 10 in this event 3 separate times. He's qualified 15 years in a row. If you made me pick one guy, I might not look much farther than him. But there's a lot of big names here, including another DRF podcast connected player, Jonathan Kinchin, who was here last year playing for a $2 million bonus. This year, maybe some of that pressure's off, and he'll have a chance to re-rally and show his stuff. Dave Gutfreund recently was among the favorites in the betting. He has accrued more mutuals in the $2 win place format in the history of this event than any other player. He'd have to be on any short list, but I mean, there's just so many players. I also wouldn't rule out the possibility of seeing a 2-time champion. I think we've got 8 or 9 former champions competing here today. What an achievement that would be if somebody can make that ball go through the hoop. And certainly all eyes will also be on defending champion Paul Matisse last weekend up at the Eclipse Awards, accepting an award as Horse Player of the Year, now back defending his title, just as sharp as they come, and another player who I want to be keeping an eye on thoroughly throughout the weekend here at Treasure Island.
I sent my well wishes to a number of players out there yesterday afternoon, but one of them was a good friend of mine, Michael Bachok, and he's been a mentor for me in a game like this over a long time. I texted him and said, Mike, at the end of this weekend, I want to be able to call you 2-time, being the first 2-time champion of this event. Like you say, it's a very salty group, though, no doubt about it. So many live players in here. Before I let you go, Peter Thomas, Fornatel, DRF Tournament Editor, got a couple minutes. Really quickly, it's already been announced the Saturday mandatory races. One of them is the Pegasus World Cup Invitational. And if you're watching on video.drf.com or any of the sort of podcast versions, if not live, you're going to take a look right now as we throw up the entry card for this race. First things first, Pete, do you think this race deserves to be a mandatory race? Secondly, who do you like in the race?
Well, I think it had to be a mandatory race, and I'm very glad they did it that way. In some years past, I know they felt pressure to do a lot of things in terms of spreading around to all 8 contest tracks and all different class levels. But to me, it's the race of the weekend. It's the race of the month. And depending on what happens when those horses throw down in the stretch Saturday night, that could be the race of the year. So I think it's only appropriate that it's in there. And I think it'll present some very interesting strategy depending on where you are. I mean, if I were somebody on the bubble when that race was coming up, I think I would probably commit. A lot of times $5, for a lot of people, $5 is going to make the difference between advancing to Sunday and not. And at the same time, I feel like, just to segue into my own handicapping of the race, there are enough questions about each horse that if I had to go and take a shot with a bigger price, you could do that. If it were me, I'd love to be in a position where I had the protection of the chalk and didn't need to choose between the two and could reach for a longer price. Somebody, hope something crazy happens in terms of a meltdown, and maybe try somebody like Keen Ice, who we've seen outrun his raw ability based on favorable setups in the past. If I had to choose between the 2 big ones, I think I'd go Arrogant. I think Mike Smith's hand is forced from down in there. He's got to get his position going forward. I could even see him being on the lead and drilling them like he did in his Tour de Force performance in the Travers. For vertical betting, those 2 that I mentioned would probably be the keys for me. I might look to key Arrogant in the 1st and 2nd spot, Keen Ice in the 3rd and 4th spot, and place obviously some tickets where Chrome is in there, but also maybe play some tickets where he doesn't have to show up to the party, where you can really get paid. I think it's a fascinating race from a betting point of view, contrary to some of what I've seen out there in social media. I think it's a really interesting and fun race.
DRF tournament editor Peter Thomas Fornital. I know you're a busy man, and this is, I don't even want to call it the calm before the storm. You got about 4 minutes to post for the opener at Aqueduct. I can't imagine there's a ton of players that are chomping at the bit looking at that as an optional, but I'm sure there's going to be at least one person that plays that, so I'll let you get to do the job. Have fun out there this weekend. Enjoy the festivities. I hope it all goes well. Anyone that's watching and listening, follow @LoomsBoldly on Twitter. He'll have all the updates for you throughout the weekend. Pete, great stuff as always. We'll talk again soon, bud.
Well, we miss you out here, man, but great to get a chance to talk to you and catch up. And yeah, keep an eye out for some periscopes. I'll steal your idea from last year and throw some of those out in the world. Thanks a lot.
Fantastic. Good luck, Pete. Enjoy it. We're going to take a break here on the Matt Bernier Show. When we come back, review last week's handicapping, dive into some big races coming up this weekend. I don't know if you heard, Pegasus World Cup is going to be one of them. Stay here. Matt Bernier Show.
California Chrome, straight and strong. Absolutely sensational. California Chrome. California Chrome. California Chrome. Away to the Kentucky Derby. California Chrome wins impressively.
He's gone into overdrive. California Chrome wins the Dubai World Cup.
One of the greatest performances you'll ever see.
Chrome turns to gold.
Say goodbye to your inner caveman. If you're making caveman bets on pick sixes, you could be leaving money on the table. DRF Bets Ticket Maker helps you build more profitable exotic bets and place them with one click. Raise your game with DRF Bets Ticket Maker. Be a samurai with your ROI. DRF Bets Ticket Maker helps you cut out unprofitable exotic bets before they happen and be the master of profits. Raise your game with DRF Bets Ticket Maker, the exotic wagering app.
Well, the amazing thing about our work was just how similar he is to Uncle Mo. I mean, right away, of all of Rapoli's babies, he stood out as the most advanced, the most precocious, and the most talented, and that was exactly the same thing we'd seen a few years before with Uncle Mo.
Outwork wins it for John Velasquez.
To be able to win a Grade 1 like the Wood Memorial in only his 4th lifetime start was very impressive.
It is Outwork in front.
$12:20 on the East, $9:20 on the West, the Matt Bernier Show here on DRF TV, on live.drf.com. You got all sorts of ways to find the show: YouTube, SoundCloud, video.drf.com, iTunes, Twitter, Facebook. It's everywhere. If you want to watch, we got plenty of ways for you to find this thing out, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific, every Friday here on the Matt Bernier Show. Thank you to Peter Thomas Fornital. We got through the technical difficulties. We got that in. I think it was important. This is a big weekend for horse players. If you're someone that has not sort of entered the contest world or has been afraid to dive in wholeheartedly or, head first, I think this is really sort of the event that you should be striving to get into. I love the Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge. I love all these other events that I've been to, and I've had success in some, and I've been terrible in others. The NHC is an event that is unlike any other simply because, like Pete alluded to, you have to earn your way there. You can't buy in. And also the fact that it is very much, it feels like an exclusive group, and you're in there, and it's just the energy. When there's a mandatory race and the entire group in that sort of arena is all focused on one race, and everyone has different wagering interests, it's unlike anything else, and it gets ratcheted up a notch, not just because today is opening day and the first day of the 3, but tomorrow moving day. Saturday, you've got all the mandatory races, and one of them is part of our handicapping race, but we'll dive into that momentarily. We have to go back and look and see how we did over the 2 races that we looked at last weekend. And, as we always do on this show, for better or for worse, I'm going to go back and take a look. 2 races, both of them down at the fairgrounds. The Colonel E.R. Bradley handicap. I thought the most likely winner going into the race was Chocolate Ride. He went off as the even money favorite. He didn't run so well. He ran 3rd. I think the days of his sort of triple-digit buyers probably in the rear view. Maybe the less than firm going didn't help his cause, but at the end of the day, he didn't look like he wanted to do it. Florent Giroux had to get into him out of the gate. Disappointing effort. My live long shot, Glorious Empire, he didn't even run in the race. He was scratched due to the equine herpes virus. So basically for me, that whole race, That was a swing and a miss. I apologize. The LeComp was a little bit better. Most likely winner I thought was Guess Sweet, not breaking any news there. I thought he would go off favored. I thought he should be in that 3-1 range. He went off at 5-2. He got the job done. Live long shots, Arklow and Totality. Arklow a rallying fourth at 6-1. Totality was 10th at 11-1. He was really poor, and I wonder if that was just a matter of maybe he didn't take to the track. It was really wet down at the fairgrounds last Saturday. So Guess Sweet moves on. He gets his 10 points toward the Kentucky Derby on the first Saturday of May. Let's dive into the handicapping. We were kind of burying it a little bit. 4 races to go over in a short amount of time. We got about 7 minutes. 4 races we want to dive into. The first one's the big one. $12 million, the Grade 1 Pegasus World Cup Invitational. Let's take a look at the field. If you're watching or listening podcast-wise, what you're looking at right now, not a morning line, not anything else. On the far right side of the screen, my odds. What I think each one of these horses deserves to go off at. And you're going to see a lot of giant numbers in here simply because 2 horses deserve the lion's share of the money. I have Arrowgate listed at 8-5. I have California Chrome listed at 9-5, breaking from the far outside post. I don't think it's a death sentence like a lot of people do that Chrome is breaking from the 12. If he is the superstar we've made him out to be, he should be able to overcome that. I hear people say Big Brown's the only one that ever won from there. Well, I don't know what the prices of all these other horses breaking from the 12 post were. Were they 50-1 shots? Were they 30-1 shots? Were they 2-1 shots? It certainly doesn't help his cause. I'm not suggesting it's a positive, but I don't think you can use this as the excuse if he doesn't win the race tomorrow. If he's good enough, I think he gets there. I think the most likely winner of the race, though, is Arrowgate. And we're going to take a look at the Breeders' Cup Classic from the top. The 2 of them, they throw it down. Michael Ronan with the stretch call.
In front, but he faces an uncommon opponent today. Arrowgate tries hard to reel in California Chrome. California Chrome with Espinosa going for the whip is still in front. Arrowgate trying his heart out. California Chrome from Arrowgate. A pulsating climax to the Classic. Arrowgate takes the lead and wins. Arrowgate beat California Chrome.
I just happen to think Arrowgate's a better horse. And that's not a knock against California Chrome. He's proven over the course of the past 3-4 years that he deserves to be in that sort of talk of the top horses of the past 5-10 years. I just think Arrowgate may be a sort of, air quotes, I know this is sort of a term that's thrown around a little too loosely. I think he may be a special horse. I think he is the most likely winner. A live long shot, though, I think is breaking lucky. And I don't think he can win the race, but boy, he's one I'm interested in using underneath. I think he can spice some things up. It seems like all he does is go off at giant prices, and all he does is run good races, draw a line through that Lucas Classic 2-back. That was over a wet track. I think he hated it. I think the 1 1/8 right in his wheelhouse. I think he works out a good trip for Reed Baker. Let's move on to another race down at Gulfstream Park, the W.L. McKnight Handicap. Great race. 12 horses are in here. This is also a mandatory race in tomorrow's NHC out in Las Vegas. You got a field of 12. Let's take a look at that field if we could. I think it's wide open. I think you can go a bunch of different ways in here. It depends on what you think of a horse like Twilight Eclipse. Is he over the hill? He's the tepid 4-1 morning line favorite. I think he has every right to run well. I just don't know that I would want to bite on 4. I made him 6-1. You see Charming Kitten coming over here for Mike Maker, his first start since being overseas in Europe back in August. I think he's 6-1 shot in here. Todd Glebe, razor sharp for Mike Maker. I think 10-1 is fair on him. I think, though, for me anyway, I look at this and say I don't trust particularly any of the shortage prices, and that includes, as you see right now, Mr. Maybe for Chad Brown. I think the most likely winner in the race, clearly I don't have a strong feeling. I have, 4 horses listed at 6-1. It'd be foolish for me to give you what I think is the most likely winner. I think a vulnerable favorite, and I'm strictly going on the morning line, is Twilight Eclipse. I think he has every right to run well. I thought his run in the Sword Dancer 3-back was tremendous. Draw a line through the Breeders' Cup, draw a line through the soft going in the Hirsch Classic when Ecto wired that field. I think he deserves to be in here. I just think he's a vulnerable favorite. I think a live long shot, though, and my pick for the race is Generous Kitten. Generous Kitten comes out of that Alan Jerkins down at Gulfstream going 2 miles, and he had a disastrous trip. He was wide, and then finally, when it was time to go, Julien Leperoux had nowhere to go with him. He got bottled up in behind horses, was never allowed to produce any run. On paper, he's simply not fast enough. I understand that entirely, but at the end of the day, to me, he's an interesting runner in here at what should be a giant price. Generous Kitten, my pick, and my live long shot in there. I made him 10-1. He probably goes off at 20-1. Let's move on to another Gulfstream race, the La Prevoyante. This is the filly and mare version of the W.L. McKnight. They're going to go 1.5 miles on the weeds. Let's take a look at that field if we could. Another full field. Tremendous day of betting down at Gulfstream Park tomorrow afternoon. Hopefully our friends can stay to post time where we don't get jacked up too badly and we're 5-10 minutes past post. Awesome race here. I think you can go a number of different ways. I'm not going to argue with anyone that looks at it and says, Arl is rock solid or Suffused is rock solid. Any of these other horses, Desiree Clary, yeah, sure, she's got a big chance in here as well. I just look at this and say Suffused is the most polarizing horse in the race for me. Not because I'm jonesing to better, but because I think she's still a bit of a goofball. And she's going to take some money in here. She doesn't have the easiest post breaking from the far outside. She's short on the morning line at 3-1. I made her 9-2. And we're going to take a look in a minute at her run, her victory up in the Glens Falls at Saratoga over the summer. She ran just fine here. I like the fact that she goes and gets these horses out in front of her, but I still don't entirely trust her. Let's take a listen to Larry Colmus as they come down the lane.
Fused is let loose on the far outside. Now it is starting to put in a run. Photo call to catch. Arl is second. Suffused is storming up on the far outside. Down toward the inside, it's Miss Chatelaine, who's now coming on through. They're coming down to the final 16. And here comes Suffused on the outside of Arl. These two will decide it. Suffused and Jose Ortiz will win it.
Like I said, she has every right to win. I just think she's a little bit goofy, and at the price that she likely goes off at, I'm going to list her as the most likely winner and a vulnerable favorite at the same time. I think she has every right, but at too short a price, I wouldn't want her. A live long shot, and this is one that I need to throw a little bit of an asterisk in because I'm not convinced she goes off as a live long shot. I liked the race that Flip Cup is coming out of. I thought she ran deceptively well, and maybe not even deceptively. I thought she ran well. She made her move at the far turn. The concern has to be the distance. Does she really want to go a mile and a half? I also think she's going to take money. I made her 5-1 as we saw in the entry cards. 5-1 does not constitute what I would consider a live long shot, but she's 10-1 in the morning line. If she goes off at 10, I think she does classify as maybe not a long shot, but maybe she's a nice middle price at 10. I think she's got a big chance in there for Bilmont tomorrow afternoon. Let's not neglect the West Coast. Let's go out to Santa Anita. Cal Cup Day. Awesome day of racing. Another one of your mandatory races for NHC 18 tomorrow afternoon is the Cal Cup Turf Classic. Let's take a look at that field if we could. Just again, you can go 15 different ways in a 10-horse field. You know, Ashley Love Sugar, all he does is show up and run triple-digit Beyer speed figures. In many ways, a triple-digit Beyer speed figure gets the job done in a race like this. But there are a couple things that I don't love. I don't love the layoff, although he is proven fresh in the past. My bigger sort of pet peeve is that he's going to take a lot of money, and at 1 1/8, I wonder if that's a little bit less than his ideal distance. As we turn the page and look at the second horses, the second list of horses anyway, we've only got 2 in there. I think Poshki's a little bit of an interesting sort of stab if you're in there. Let's say you're out at the Treasure Island, you need to make a move and you need a capper. Maybe Poshki goes off close to that sort of cap range. I believe he's 12 on the morning line. I made him 19. Going back to Ashley Love Sugar, I thought the most recent start down at Del Mar in the Hollywood Turf Cup, I thought it was fine. I feel like maybe a little bit of a tactical error as we see Texas Rayano is going to roll up and Trevor Denman's going to bring him home down the lane.
They are homeward bound. Ashley Love Sugar in the pink. Texas Rayano on the outside gets the lead. Flamboyant now comes with a run down at the rail. Texas Rayano got first run and opened up, and a powerful stretch run from Texas Rayano and Joe Talamo. Texas Rayano takes the Hollywood Turf Club.
Obviously no match for Texas Rayano that day, but again, when I mentioned the sort of tactical error, in my opinion, doesn't mean that I think it was some sort of egregious error, but when you have a speed horse, take advantage of the speed. If you start with Texas Rayano, he's always going to outkick you. Ashley Love Sugar doesn't have a big turn of foot. That early pace is always what makes him and puts him in a sort of an advantageous position. I think he's the most likely winner in this race by far. The horse that I've been waiting for, and if you've been watching us on DRF Live on Saturdays, you've seen He Will about 5 times over the past 5 months. His most recent start going down the hill, I'm not holding that against him. He took an awkward step. He was out sprinted early. Now they stretch him back out to 1 1/8. When we did this preview, I think Dan Ellman brought up a very good point, that maybe this has been the goal all along for He Will, that was nothing more than a stopgap in the San Simeon. I think a live long shot is He Will. He's 8-1 in the morning line. I think he takes money. So again, similarly to Flip Cup, maybe this isn't your true traditional sort of live long shot, but I think this is an interesting horse. I'm picking him. I'm anxiously looking forward to betting him. Hopefully, fingers crossed, if the price is appropriate. He will for me in the California Turf Cup Classic. But at the end of the day, Ashley Love Sugar, far and away the most likely winner. A lot in a short amount of time right there. It's about 12:32 on the East Coast, 9:32 on the West Coast. The NHC is officially kicked off out in Las Vegas. Apologies for the early little technical difficulties. The boys in the back, they got us straightened out. We got everything hammered out, and it was all good. Tomorrow, huge day of racing, and you're going to take a look right now. We're going to start at 3 o'clock Eastern on live.drf.com with DRF TV. As you can see, stakes on top of stakes on top of stakes on top of graded stakes on top of graded stakes. You name it, you got it. You've got turf sprints, you've got dirt sprints, you've got turf routes, you've got dirt routes. You also have the first $12 million race in the history of the world. The history of the world. The Grade 1 Pegasus World Cup Invitational, Arrowgate versus California Chrome. We'll bring you right through the Cal Cup Derby out at Santa Anita, scheduled to go off about 7:15. Hopefully they're pretty darn close to on time as well. So fun day coming up tomorrow. Dan Illman, Mike Beer, myself, live.drf.com starting at 3 o'clock Eastern. If you're watching, whether it's on live.drf.com, whether it's on Twitter or Facebook, live, thank you for doing so. If you check this thing out, podcast version, whether it's video or audio, YouTube, SoundCloud, video.drf.com, iTunes, you name it, it's out there. You can find it. Thank you for checking this thing out. Hopefully you get some nuggets out of it. Maybe you agree, maybe you disagree. Feel free to fire at me on Twitter at Bernier_Matt. If you start popping off at the mouth, I may ignore you. If you be civil and want to discuss things, I'll probably discuss things with you. But if you start popping off, I got no time for that. I'll just end up mute you. I get too much of that as is. Anyway, January the 27th, this has been Friday. This has been the Matt Bernier Show. And the good thing is, we still have the Formulator race of the day coming for you ahead. That's at Santa Anita. It's the 7th race. It's a salty race, 6.5 furlongs on the main track. Enjoy Pegasus World Cup weekend, and we'll call it Pegasus World Cup Day down at Gulfstream Park tomorrow afternoon. We'll see you at 3 o'clock Eastern. I will see you on this show next Friday, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Until then, Formulator race of the day for Friday.